Let's talk about the top 10 mistakes to avoid making on your website. Hi, my name is Kyung. I'm a UX UI designer. I worked at Napster and Shazam, and I worked with a bunch of other big brands during my time at different agencies. Mistake number one is not having a clear call to action. This applies for the website as a whole and for every single page. You probably invested a lot of time and energy and maybe money for advertising to get people to your website. So now that they're there, what is it that you want them to do? An easy way to think about this is a call to action usually takes the form of a button. So it can be add to cart, download, subscribe, or a play button on a video. Figure out what you want the user to do and then make it easy for them to take that action. Mistake number two is having text that is too small. Luckily, this is an easy fix. Just make sure that the body copy, the main part of the description or the blog or the article or whatever it is that you're writing, is at least 16-point font size. And depending on the actual typeface that you choose, you might want to bump it up to 18. Mistake number three is having text that is too wide on a page. If a line of text takes up too many characters, it's easier to get lost and it's harder to read. So the ideal length should be about 45 to 75 characters, and that includes spaces and punctuation. And depending on the use case, I think sometimes it's okay to go up to about 90. The ideal is around 65 characters in width. You can just adjust the padding or the margins of whatever you're using to build your website, whether it's WordPress or Shopify or Wix or whatever it is, and make sure that the width of the container for the copy doesn't go past 90 characters. Mistake number four is not having enough contrast. The color contrast between the text and the background of the website or the button or whatever it is. This can cause issues for people with visual impairment, color blindness, or just elderly people, anyone with vision issues. It makes it very hard to read. An easy way to check this is you can go to this website called webaim.org, and you can put in the hex value of the different colors that you have for the copy in the background, and it'll give you a score and tell you whether there's enough contrast or not. Mistake number five is having a website that isn't optimized for mobile. Actually, it's not even just mobile. Sometimes I'm on websites, and if I'm on a large desktop versus a laptop, some parts of the website are cut off and I can't access navigation and content. You might think just using a responsive website theme is enough, but you might have to go in there and tweak some settings to make sure everything gets displayed and rendered properly. Make sure that all navigation and key content is viewable on all devices on all those different size screens. Mistake number six is having a website that is too slow. This will result in users leaving your site out of frustration, and it'll negatively affect your SEO, your search engine optimization. You can check how fast your website is by going to GT Metrics. You type in your URL and it'll give you a score of how fast it is. When I had an old website, I got a D rating, which is terrible. And I wasn't sure what was wrong. I was using WordPress, I was using a good hosting company. So what happened was I switched from Elementor, which is a very popular page builder, and I switched to Gutenberg, which is the newer block builder that's native to WordPress. And that alone changed my speed rating from a D to an A-. So I definitely recommend building WordPress sites in Gutenberg. Mistake number seven is not having a clear hierarchy. You want to make sure that the important things are above the fold. So before you start scrolling on your website, you want it at the top and you want it big to make it easy to find and read for the user. This could also mean having buttons that are brighter in color for the more important action you want them to take, and then having just maybe an outline button for the secondary action. Mistake number eight is having buttons that are too small on mobile devices. Now, even though it might be legible, for people's fingers to be able to tap accurately, especially if there are multiple buttons next to each other, you want to make sure that they're big enough and there's enough space around them so that people tap accurately on what they're trying to navigate to. So there's different guidelines put forth by Apple, the iOS guidelines, and material guidelines from Google. So I would say about 42 pixels by 42 pixels is the minimum, and it could go up to 72 pixels by 72 pixels. And I think the ideal is around 60 pixels. I think that was the recommended size for the primary action. Mistake number 9 is not having design consistency. Obviously, you want all the pages on your website to be consistent, to have the same typography and color palette, but this extends even to all your different social media channels, your marketing emails, any print material like business cards or brochures. Everything should look unified and it should be consistent. If you don't already have a brand identity kit, you should make one, and that should include all the different elements of your branding, your logo, the typefaces, the color palette, things like that. But even small things like when you have a header, is it all caps or do you use title case? Are your buttons square or do they have the rounded corners? Whatever choices you make, they have to be consistent across all of your platforms. There's a lot of different elements that go into your branding, and unfortunately, just having a logo isn't enough. I'll be making videos about the different elements of branding, so if you're interested, hit the subscribe button. Mistake number 10 is the most important one, and that is not having a clearly defined audience. So for example, if I had a website that taught yoga, I could be teaching it to people that are inflexible, or maybe I'm teaching it to elderly people, or maybe I'm teaching it to kids, or pregnant women, or athletes. Each of those are very different audiences, and my messaging, my photos, my entire branding is going to be different depending on who my target audience is. Now sometimes there could be overlap, you might hit multiple audiences, and that's okay, but you need to have at least one and focus your website to them. Thanks for watching. If you found this content helpful, please like and subscribe. I cover design and creativity for entrepreneurs, YouTubers, bloggers, and other non-designers. And I'll see you in the next video.